Greetings and salutations, and this is Tech Plays here, back with, well, with the finale of Crash Bandicoot Warped. And, yeah, I'm really happy this playthrough is going to be over with, because this is probably the Crash playthrough I've had the least fun with so far, at least, like, in terms of actually playing the game. In terms of doing the commentary, I've had a lot of fun with that. But, in terms of actually playing the game, it wasn't quite as fun as Crash 2 or Crash 4, in my opinion. Crash 4 had that extra challenge that made it, like, more interesting to play, and then Crash 2 is just the best Crash game ever, in my opinion. I think Crash Insanity is probably my second favorite, but that's whatever. Anyway, first thing I want to talk about this video is I saw a video on my recommended on YouTube. I haven't watched the video yet. I saved it to my watch later to watch later. I haven't watched the video yet, but I saw a video with like a Crash thumbnail that says Activision doesn't deserve Crash Bandicoot. And I haven't watched the video yet, but I already know that whoever made that video, you're speaking facts off the bat. You're speaking facts off the bat. I gotta get into this. Last video I ripped into Nintendo, last video being the Alone in the Dark video that went up earlier this week. This is why I need to get back to doing, I need to get to where I'm doing one Let's Play at a time instead of like rotating between games like this. But the rest of this season of Tech Plays will probably be continued in this format, but I think starting next season, I'm probably going to do one game at a time. Not sure. It depends on how, like, things fall into place. But anyway, last video I ripped into Nintendo because they're charging $80 for Mario Kart World. They're being super greedy, and then their excuse for it is super fucked and all that stuff. I made jokes about it and everything. Pointed out how, like, I'm glad that I'm not a Nintendo console owner. That I'm not someone who plays Nintendo stuff, because they fell off after the Wii, in my opinion. But today is not about Nintendo. Today is about Capcom. Not Capcom. Actually, I have more positive things to say about Capcom, because I'm an RE fan. Today is about Activision. And yeah, I never liked Activision. At least, like, as far as I can remember. Like, I never had... At first, I didn't have much of an opinion on them because I had played like a couple Activision games that were back on PS2 and stuff. But Activision wasn't like the greedy, messed up corporation they are now back then. The first time I actually had an opinion on Activision was when they started becoming that. And it wasn't positive. So, Activision owning Crash and Spyro has been the only reason I've supported anything Activision in the last decade. Because I want to play Crash and Spyro. Like, I wasn't a Spyro fan before the Reignited trilogy, but the Reignited trilogy kind of made me one. I really enjoyed it. I did the first two games on this channel. They were part of my old Let's Play series run on games, if you want to go check them out. But I never was an Activision fan. I never wanted to support Activision. I wanted to support the IPs I like, and maybe Activision will go, okay, these are of value, let's make more of them, let's give Toys for Bob more to do, because Toys for Bob are a fantastic developer. They made Crash 4 and the Reignited trilogy. There's also Vicarious Visions that made the Insane trilogy, but I think Toys for Bob is the better developer, in my honest opinion. But yeah, the point I'm getting at here is that my thought process was, I don't want to support Activision, but maybe if I support like Crash and Spyro, they'll make more Crash and Spyro. Wrong. They fucking killed the series again. They did make more Crash, they did, but it was Crash T Rumble, which, granted, I don't think that was as bad as a game as a lot of people say it was. I don't think it was like as terrible as people thought it was. but I do think it was weak. And I think Activision, seeing how poorly that did, basically had the even with how well the Insane Trilogy, even with how well the Insane Trilogy, CTR Nitro Fueled, and Crash 4 sold, they were just like, okay, I guess people don't want Crash anymore, so we ain't doing Crash. They literally canceled the Crash 5 project. That was like a thing that was revealed like a few months back, I think it was. I don't remember how far back it was. I don't know if it was like earlier this year or near the end of last year. But they canceled Crash 5. And there's been no news on Spyro whatsoever. They don't deserve either one of those series, in my opinion. I think Crash and Spyro have the potential to be as big as Mario, Sonic, Resident Evil, all those like big popular series. God of War. I think it has potential to be as big as those. Because you gotta think about it. Crash and Spyro are both really iconic series. They're more iconic than some of the most popular game series in the world, in my honest opinion. These series literally have a formula for success. Like, you literally just could expand on what they already do, and they'll be good games. That's what Crash 4 did. Crash 4 didn't play like a classic Crash game. Actually, it kind of, my honest opinion, it kind of felt like it played like somewhere in between Crash Twinsanity and the classic Crash games, but with the added difficulty and like the new mask power-ups and stuff. So, Crash 4 was basically them taking the classic Crash formula and expanding on it by a lot. That is the direction they need to go in with Crash and Spyro. They could be just single player games. You don't have to make them a live service failure, like failure waiting to happen type deal like Crash Team Rumble. You can make these games single player, they'll do good. Because you gotta think about it, they both already have a lot of fans, and a lot of people who are like fans of Sonic and Mario will probably see these games and go, oh, these are similar, maybe I'll like these. Like, they literally are games that would do well under the right people. And the right developers, like, they've had the right developers. For the, like, even Crash Team Rumble, which failed, had Toys for Bob, which was a good developer. It's just, they have a terrible publisher. Activision doesn't deserve to own Crash and Spyro. Here's the thing, they're literally sitting on a gold mine with these two series. And here's the way I see it. I don't think Activision is ever going to give up Crash or Spyro because they know they're of some value. But they're mistreating them and they're not like releasing anything new for them because they think they're not profitable right now because they made the developers make a trash-ass live service game. That's what I think is going on. I think they are not making anything new to Spyro or Crash because Crash Team Rumble failed. When in actuality, that's the wrong lesson to take from that. They're pulling what Sega would pull up until recent times, where like they would see a game do well or do horribly and take the wrong lesson from it. And that's what happened. That should have told you don't do a live service fucking game. It doesn't tell you the series isn't profitable, you dumbasses. And this isn't even going into like how horrible Activision is overall. They're just like one of the most greedy corporations on the fucking planet. Like, I've made comparisons before that I think Nintendo has literally become the Disney of like of gaming companies. I don't think there's even a comparison for Activision, quite honestly. Like, it's not to say Activision's worse than Nintendo, because, honestly, I couldn't really tell you who's worse at this point. is more of a case of there aren't many, like, there aren't many companies that can compare them to. Because almost every company that makes movies or shows similar to Disney, right, is either like so bad that I feel like comparing Activision to them is just unfair to Activision, actually, which is might sound wild for me to say, but yeah, that's how I'm feeling about it. And then there's others that have made a few mistakes and are currently making mistakes, but they've also done a lot of good. So it's like, it feels insulting to those companies to compare them to Activision. So there's really no, like, accurate thing to compare Activision to. And I'll go into why I like I like to compare Nintendo to Disney. Greed. Not only greed, but gatekeeping and everything. Like, Disney and Nintendo own so many properties that they don't want anyone else touching. Nintendo is worse on the nobody can touch this shit part. And Disney is worse on the we have to own everything part. But it's basically a similar situation. Like, you got PlayStation, and I know I'm complaining more about Nintendo when I said I wasn't, but this is the last I'll bring up about them. You got PlayStation and Microsoft. You got Sony and Microsoft making, like, all their games eventually be multi-platform. And then you have Nintendo that's still gatekeeping all their games off of Sony and Microsoft consoles. I honestly think, and this might be a hot take here, I think game exclusivity is dying off. For good reason. Because now we're at a point where, like, game exclusivity fucks over the consumers more than, like, it does helping them decide on what console to get. Because the consumer is not going to be able to afford all three consoles these days. Hell, even like years ago, it was really hard to afford all three consoles. Me personally, I've always owned only one or two of them. Like, I've never owned a Microsoft console in my life. I've owned I had a PS2, I had a Wii, I had a DS, I had a PS3, PS4, PS5. That was it. I only supported Nintendo through the Wii and DS era. Outside of that, I've been solely Sony, because can't afford to have multiple consoles. But it's even worse now, because, like, the default price for consoles is like $500 now. Going off the Nintendo Switch 2 and PS5 and all that stuff. It's just the default. And it's not really something I think I can blame on the developers. Not the developers. It's not really something I think I can blame on, like, the companies themselves. We have, like, a pretty bad economic inflation going on in the US. I think it's happening in other parts of the world too, but the US has, like, a really bad economic inflation that's been happening since 2020. And it's been gradually getting worse, but, like, starting last year, it started to escalate more. Before President Cantaloupe was elected, so... But I do think he made it worse, because he's adding tariffs and stuff, and now things are raising even more than before. But, basically, starting, like, last year, things started to escalate even more in economic inflation. So it's not really, like, something I can really blame on, like, Sony, Nintendo, Microsoft, none of that. I can't blame them for, like, selling consoles for $500 now. I can blame Sony for the PS5 Pro price. That's way too much. But in terms of the base console prices, it's kind of fair going off, like, current economic inflation. Like, I hate it, but it's just the way it is. Like, I can't deny that it's not their fucking fault. That the economy is going to shit. It's not their fucking fault. Like, I can't blame them for that. And this isn't me defending, like, the gaming companies or anything like that. It's just me acknowledging that I would be incorrect to blame them. That I would basically be making myself act like an idiot to blame them. Because you'd have to ignore all the details to think it's like Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo's fault, right? There is a good bit of pricing issues that are Nintendo's fault, and I do think the PS5 Pro is a thing you can blame on Sony. That's a price you can blame on Sony. But outside of those two situations, for the most part, I get why prices are going higher. That being said, due to these price increases and the fact that, like, the rate people are being paid at is not really keeping up with the inflation that well. I know I'm going into serious topics like this in a Crash video, but bear with me here. The fact that, like, the rate people are being paid is not really escalating at the same rate that the prices of stuff is. It's not really, like, catching up to it all too quickly. Like, it's pretty slow, quite honestly. Due to that, it's harder than ever to own more than one version, like one option, right? Like, fucking hell, PCs are already expensive as fuck. That's why I don't own PC. That's why I stick with PlayStation. I would never own a Microsoft console. I don't like Microsoft. And now I really, really don't like Nintendo. Like, if I gotta pick one or the other, I'm obviously going with Microsoft, because Nintendo is just stupid as fuck now. But I'm gonna stick with PlayStation unless, like, it gets to a point where it'll bite me in the ass for it, like Nintendo fans are having done to them right now. So, like, my point is, game exclusivity at this point is just fucking over consumers, because 99% of consumers are not going to be able to own every console. And if you say they can, you're a fucking liar, because you are not paying attention to the fucking prices of shit right now. You are not paying attention. Economic inflation doesn't just affect the prices of consoles and games and all that. It also affects, like, how much it costs to live. You gotta pay more for bills now. You gotta pay more for groceries now. You gotta pay more for all that shit. More for medical bills. Everything. You gotta pay more for everything, right? So you might be so to anybody who probably was thinking, okay, those prices alone, yeah, everybody could do that, even though, like, just off those prices alone, it's already, like, pretty impossible. You gotta take into account everything costs more now, and that the rate people are being paid is not catching up to it. Not at all. It's like slowly rising, but it's like not nowhere near where it needs to be. Prices are rising for shit, but people are not being paid the right amount to pay for that shit. So, like, it's harder than ever to own 3 fucking video game consoles. So this is a big deal. Game exclusivity is more of an issue to the consumer than it is to the competitors of that game console. I think that's why, I think that's part of why game exclusivity is sort of dying, and Sony and Microsoft has started, like, porting all their games over to each other and to PC and all that. Because they realized this. They realized that it's no longer, like, a thing that's an issue to the competitor, like, ha, we got this, you don't. It's now a thing that's an issue to the people who buy their product. And I think they realized that. So they're, like, killing it. They're killing game exclusivity, and I think that's a good thing. Now, you could call me crazy for that if you want. That may be a hot take, but I do think game exclusivity is a thing that should have been dead by now. I think it's a pretty stupid thing. You shouldn't be, like, you shouldn't have games. That's basically game exclusivity at this point would just be gatekeeping. It's no longer, like, a perk to owning that console. It's now gatekeeping to people who can't afford your console. Whether that be because they don't have enough money to have a console in the first place, or that be because they have another console they're loyal to already. So it's like, I think Sony and Microsoft are realizing that less people care about exclusivity because they can't afford all that shit. And because of that, they're just like, they're porting their games over to each other's consoles and to PC because it's more profitable. They're making more of a profit doing that. You gotta think about it. This isn't just like, this, like, I probably had you for a second. You're probably like, oh, this, you think they're doing it out of the goodness of their heart for their customers? No, they're doing it for profit, obviously. They're companies. That's what fucking corporate companies do. Especially companies as big as Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo. But the fact of the matter is, Nintendo is still gatekeeping all their games on Switch and Switch 2. And that's what I'm calling it at this point, because when every other like console company is making their games available on as many platforms as possible because they know it's more profitable now, right? Nintendo is just being assholes by not doing that because they'd make more money. Like, let's be real, they would make more money if like Zelda games were on other consoles because more people would be buying Zelda. They would make more money if like Mario was on other consoles. Like, okay, I don't really want Mario on PlayStation 5. Like, fuck that one. But you get my point. I don't care about Mario. But you get my point. I'm just giving those as examples because those are the two most popular Nintendo franchises. But yeah, I just think that Nintendo is like the most Disney of the three console developers, whatever you want to call them. Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft. Sony and Microsoft are making a bunch of mistakes, but they're not like horrible like Nintendo is right now. They're not super greedy. So it's like, yeah. Anyway, we're done with that topic now. We're almost at the end of the video. If I remember correctly, I think that was the last thing we had to do before we go to the final boss again. No, we got this level. I forgot about this one. My bad. Oh, I hated this one. This isn't the worst one. Rings of Power, it's not the worst level. I pointed out that jet ski level from last video was like the hardest time I had getting a time relic. So obviously this didn't top that. This was easier for both the time relic and for the main gems and stuff. It is so hard to do this level though because the turning on this plane, motherfucker, the turning on this plane, and it gets worse when you go through these rings. So you can imagine how annoying the time trial for this was. Granted, the time trial was still not as bad as that jet ski level, but it was pretty annoying. I think the hardest time I had on this level was getting the initial gem, though, funny enough. I think that was the hardest time I had. Like, this isn't even my first try. This is... I think I cut out most of my tries, but this is like a million tries later. The box gem's the easiest thing here, because all you gotta do is break all the boxes. You don't gotta come in first. The hardest thing is the main gem, because you gotta come in first. But that's over with. I cut out all the fails. There was like 27 fails. There was like 82 fails. There was like 167 fails. There was like 543. I'm kidding. It was most realistically probably around 27. That was probably the closest guess to what it actually was. I don't remember how many times I failed, but that was probably closest.
Yes, it is true. The Bandicoot has brought all the crystals and all of the gems.
Ah, this guy again. Hello.
The world as we know it is about to end.
But yeah. No, I've been talking about a lot about game companies and like shit like that, like these last two videos. That's just what's been on my mind this week, and I do these commentary videos. I do like the commentary for videos the same day, so usually whatever's on my mind might bleed into the next video or whatever. And these were just the list of things I had to talk about. I had another thing to talk about this video, but I ended up rambling back into the Nintendo stuff, which was off topic of this video. Wasn't a topic I was supposed to cover this video, but I just had more to say. Like, I apologize for that, but I didn't have more to say. But we are almost done here. Like, after this Let's Play is done, which I'm really happy about, because I can start my next one. Revelations 2. I said, like, that my next one was going to be RE1 Remake. I said that one of the Alone in the Dark parts. But it's actually going to be RE Revelations 2. The reason for that is because I tried playing RE1 Remake, and I just wasn't feeling it at the time. I love RE1 Remake, don't get me wrong. It's one of my favorite RE games. But I wasn't in the mood for that type of game, that type of survival horror. I kind of wanted more of the fun survival horror that I had when I played Alone in the Dark or Silent Hill 2. So I went, Revelations 2 is a lot like those games, just, you know, a little less classic in the survival horror sense, since it takes a different approach, but it's still, like, very close to those games. So I started playing Revelations 2, and I was like, okay, this is just going to be the next Let's Play, because I wanted to set it up as, like, a special Let's Play, because it's, like, it was my first Resident Evil game. And I think saving it for the season finale Let's Play of of Tech Plays Season 1 is the perfect way to do that. And it is last Let's Play I'm going to do. I'm probably going to do, like, 6 Let's Plays per season, but yeah.
Not a prisoner of time again.
The Time Twister machine could not hold itself together. We were lucky to escape.
Give me the mask. With it, I shall take over the world. Come on.
It is difficult to say what has happened to our enemies, but I doubt we will see them for a long time.
Anyway, we are ending the video off here. I hope you enjoyed this Let's Play. This has been Tech Plays.